Yes, Chair, I believe we're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session of the City Planning Commission. I'm pausing because there's a brief echo here in the hearing room, and I'm going to see if we can fix that before I proceed. While we play around with that, I'm going to note we're joined by Vice Chair Knuckles, Commissioners Benjamin, Cerullo, Dweck, Gold on Zoom, Goodridge, Kermani, Mann, Marin on Zoom, Osorio, and Rampersad. Now, it seems like I have both called the roll and filibustered properly to eliminate the echo, so there's good news there. Before we dive into today's agenda, I just want to quickly share some recent news from the Department of City Planning. Earlier this month, on December 5th, we celebrated the one-year anniversary of the passage of City of Yes for housing opportunity, the most pro-housing legislation in the city's history. In that short amount of time, we are already seeing lots of progress on housing production. Permits are up 23% when compared to 2024. With many developments taking advantage of the plan's different components. Over 100 projects have applied to use the universal affordability preference, which will help deliver 5,400 new homes. Together with the 467M tax incentive, City of Yes has supported a boom of office to residential conversions with over 12,000 homes in the pipeline, including more than 3,000 permanently affordable units. And the New York City Department of Buildings has received nearly 100 filings for accessory dwelling units, including some in every borough outside of Manhattan. We're also here seeing early adoption of our new high-density R11 and R12 zoning districts, including through the approved Midtown South mixed-use plan and the MTA's 125th Street and Lexington Avenue rezoning, as well as 395 Flatbush Avenue extension in downtown Brooklyn. Both the MTA and 395 Flatbush are currently in public review. With City of Yes and other policy changes, we're beginning to turn the tide on the city's housing crisis and creating a more affordable city for generations to come. I look forward to seeing more progress on this plan in the months and years ahead. After delivering these monumental changes to our zoning rules over the past 4 years, and again, appreciation to this commission for its very important role in all of this, it was clear that we needed an updated edition of the zoning handbook to reflect that work. So I'm proud to share that the 2025 edition of the zoning handbook, which looks like this, is now available online and in the city store. This important guide makes zoning more accessible, explaining New York's land use rules and regulations in a clear, coherent, and easy-to-read format. It's a true Rosetta Stone for anyone who wants to get involved in planning for our city's future. It makes for a great stocking stuffer for the planner in your life. Let's turn to today's agenda. We're going to kick things off with Monitor Point, a significant mixed-use proposal that would bring 3 new buildings to Greenpoint's shoreline. Located at 40 Key Street, the project would create 1,150 new homes, of which 300 would be permanently income-restricted affordable. It would also include ground floor retail space, a permanent home for the Greenpoint Monitor Museum, and a 44,500 square foot public waterfront open space and esplanade. Located at 40 Key Street and built to resiliency standards, it would be situated near Bushwick Inlet Park, WNYC Transmitter Park, and Greenpoint Ferry Dock and the Greenpoint Avenue G train station. We're going to also hear details on DeWitt Clinton Park North, 2 proposals for mixed-use buildings on the west side of Manhattan. The first at 801 11th Avenue would have around 540 new homes, of which up to 162 would be permanently income restricted affordable. The second at 629 West 54th Street would include ground floor retail and about 700 new homes, of which up to 210 would be permanently affordable. To bring these projects to fruition, the applicants are requesting a transfer of development rights from multiple piers along the Hudson River. The funds from that transfer will be used to facilitate improvements on Pier 76, including new park space, a pedestrian esplanade, and other amenities. Staying in Manhattan, we'll learn about a special permit application to convert 509 Madison Avenue in Midtown East from commercial use to a 96-room hotel with ground floor retail. We'll also review City Council modifications on a few projects. First, the MTA's 125th Street and Lexington Avenue rezoning, which I mentioned before, which would transform the vacant lot at the corner of 125th and Lex in East Harlem into a mixed-use building with roughly 680 homes above the future terminus of the 2nd Avenue subway. We will also review City Council modifications to the Herkimer-Williams project, a significant proposal in East New York, Brooklyn, that includes 4 buildings with hundreds of new homes, offices, retail, light industrial, and new public open space. So with that, let's get started. Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Planning Commission review session for Monday, December 15th, 2025. The time is 1:08, and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments, special permits, and a city map amendment in Brooklyn Community District 1. Our presenter is Lucia Marquez-Reagan.
Hello, welcome.
There we go, sorry. Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick and Commissioners. This is an application by Gotham Organization, Monitor Museum, and the Metropolitan Transit Authority to facilitate a new 940,000 square foot mixed-use development containing 1,150 apartments, including 300 income-restricted, commercial space, community facility space, including a permanent home for the Monitor Museum, and waterfront public access area in the Greenpoint, the neighborhood of Greenpoint, Community District 1, Brooklyn. The applicant seeks a series of actions to facilitate the development, including a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area, a zoning text amendment, text amendments to a large-scale general development special permit to waive loading requirements, city map change within a separate application, 250326 MMK. In addition, the applicant is seeking a chair certification pursuant to 62811 to demonstrate compliance with waterfront regulations. The project area is located along the Greenpoint waterfront and is roughly bounded by Key Street and the West Wharf development to the north, East River to the west, and Bushwick Inlet to the south. The project area is a half a mile from both the Greenpoint Avenue and Nassau Avenue G stations, which provide service between Long Island City and Kensington, and connections to the 7, L, and F train lines with access to the broader city into Queens and Manhattan. The B62 connecting Williamsburg Bridge Plaza and Long Island City run along Franklin Street adjacent to Bushwick Inlet Park. In addition, there are 4 bus lines within 3/4 of a mile from the project area, including the B24, B62, B43, and B48. The New York City Ferry has a Greenpoint stop at 10 India Street, which is located approximately half a mile from the project area. And the New York City Ferry provides service along the East River to Wall Street, Dumbo, South Williamsburg, North Williamsburg, East 34th Street, and Hunts Point South. The surrounding area is generally characterized by a mix of residential, seen on this map in yellow and light orange, industrial in purple, commercial, darker orange and red, and open space in green. Residential uses in the surrounding area include elevator apartment buildings, including towers along the waterfront, and 6 to 8 story contextual buildings in the upland areas, and 3 to 4 story row houses. In addition, the Greenpoint-Williamsburg Industrial Business Zone, IBZ, is located adjacent to Franklin Street. The portion of the IBZ within the surrounding area includes single-story industrial buildings. The surrounding area contains a variety of uses, including retail, restaurant, and office uses, semi-industrial, and warehouse uses. The project area was rezoned as a part of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning in 2005, along with waterfront blocks north and south of the project area. North of the project area, there's a special mixed-use district, MX8, with residential and manufacturing district pairings, as well as an R6, R8 residential district split along the waterfront with a C24 commercial overlay along West Street and Franklin Street, both northwest thoroughfares. To the south, the project area borders the Motiva parcel of Bushwick Inlet Park, nearly complete. The development site outlined in yellow is within the 1% annual chance floodplain, and a portion of the development site is within the limit of moderate wave action area and would experience wave action at 1% annual chance flood event. Previously approved actions in the surrounding area include the Greenpoint-Williamsburg 2005 rezoning, which again rezoned a 183 block area extending along the Brooklands East River waterfront and adjacent. As a part of the rezoning, the largely M31 zoning district to the north of the project area were rezoned to R6, R8 residential districts, and the blocks east of the project area were rezoned special mixed-use districts. The Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning blocks north and south of the project area and rezoned also a portion of the project area. It created the BK1 Waterfront Access Plan, or WAP, which provided design and access requirements for parcels along the Greenpoint-Williamsburg waterfront. And the rezoning also altered the city map to map park designations on several sites, including the project area, parts of the project area, and Bushwick Inlet Park to the south. Within the Greenpoint-Williamsburg IBZ, recent applications include industrial business area special permits, 25 Kent, 12 Franklin, 103 North 13th Street, 1 Wythe, and 20 Berry, which is currently in ULURP, as well as the Acme Fish rezoning. Just north of the development site is 79 Key rezoning, approved in 2021. This proposal rezoned an M12 R6A to an M14 R7D MX and mapped MIH to facilitate a new 11-story mixed-use residential development. There are several parks within the project area, including the 36.5-acre McCarran Park and the 35.5-acre planned Bushwick Inlet Park. As mentioned prior, the project area and surrounding shoreline to the north and south of the project area is within the BK1 Waterfront Access Plan. The BK1 WAP was created to connect the waterfront from Greenpoint to Williamsburg by establishing a continuous walkway and connections between several parks along the waterfront, such as the 11-acre Marcia P. Johnson State Park, Bushwick Inlet Park, the 6.6-acre Transmitter Park, each on this map, as well as the 2.8-acre future Box Street Park, which is further north. Some currently completed portions of the WAP include West Wharf Public Access Area, or WPAA, adjacent to the project area to the north, a 1.8-acre portion of Bushwick Inlet Park called Motiva, adjacent to the project area to the south, is nearly complete, and North 5th Street on the southern edge of the map. The project area is missing connection within the Greenpoint-Williamsburg WAP, which is planned to provide a link between existing and planned parks to the south in Williamsburg and north in Greenpoint. This is a zoomed-in visual of the project area bounded by Key Street, a 60-foot wide street to the north, the East River to the west, and Bushwick Inlet Park to the south. The project area includes 2 lots within Block 2590 and the northern half of former Key Street. Lot 1 is owned by the Metropolitan Transit Authority and consists of 71,838 square foot single-story mobile bus washing facility, which was constructed in 1973. This site was rezoned in 2005 as a part of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning from an M31 to an R6 and R6 C24. The current uses on site are non-conforming. Lot 25 is a 51,000 square foot vacant lot owned by the Monitor Museum, as well as the northern half of former Key Street. It's It's a 14,000 square foot vacant piece of land. Were not rezoned as a part of the 2005 rezoning and maintained the legacy M31 district designation. The two sites were mapped on the city map with a park designation. Next, we'll look at site images. This photo is at the intersection of Key Street and West Street, looking southeast at the development site. The MTA bus washing facility, Lot 1, is the red brick building outlined in yellow. Moving to the farthest east corner of the development site, we are looking at the edge of the development site on Key Street, looking southwest. And looking west, this image is down Key Street, where we can see the development site in yellow on the right-hand side of the image, and it illustrates some of the residential context along Key Street, including the newly developed residential building and scaffolding. This image is of Key Street, west of West Street, the development site on the right, and the project area in light blue, including the northern half of former Key Street. On the right side of the image, we can see West Wharf, a development to the north, behind the green construction fencing. At the end of the mapped Key Street, this is an image facing east of the project area. We see 79 Key in the distance under construction fencing. On the left-hand side is an image of West Wharf. Moving inside of the development site, this is an image of the conditions of Lot 25, the vacant lot owned by the Monitor Museum. On the left-hand side, again, we see the MTA site, and in the distance beyond the project area is Bushwick Inlet and the Greenpoint Williamsburg IBZ. Turning east, this image is of the rest of Lot 25, and we can see the shoreline adjacent to Bushwick Inlet, where stabilization efforts have taken place prior to this application and will be continued as a part of the proposed application. Moving back to Key Street, we're on the corner of Key Street and Wharf Drive, facing the project area, the development site in yellow, and non-applicant owned former Key Street on the right side of the image within the Teal project area. Past the gate, we're looking down the northern half of former Key Street towards the East River. This area is not open to the public, but will be the paved pathway. On the other end of former Key, facing east, we can see West Wharf on the left side of the image and the inlet on the right side of the image. In addition to the history of each site and existing uses, the project area is constrained by underground infrastructure that require easements on the property, which can be seen in light red on the image. The two lines of infrastructure run at the prolongation of Key Street and West Street and require the applicant team to provide surface access for the department.
We cannot hear.
Same, I hear you, but not them.
Testing?
Now we can hear.
We have you.
Okay, good. We paused for a moment, we lost the audio for a second, but we are now back. Sorry for the inconvenience, everybody. Why don't you just back up a few sentences and then keep it going.
No problem. So on this slide, we're at the end of former Key Street facing east. We see West Wharf on the left side of the image and the inlet on the right side of the image. In addition, the history and existing uses on site, the project area is constrained by underground infrastructure that require easements on the property, which can be seen in light red on this image. The two lines of infrastructure run at the prolongations of Key Street and West Street and require the applicant team to provide surface access for the Department of Environmental Protection, access that does not exist on site today. In addition, the site is within the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation jurisdiction in the red dotted line, an area which includes review and approval by DEC for pervious and impervious surfaces and construction. There are ongoing efforts by the Monitor Museum on Lot 25 for shore stabilization pursuant to New York State DEC Tidal Wetland and Protection Permits and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Section 10 and 404 permits. The efforts that are ongoing as the shoreline continues to face deterioration due to erosion. In addition, prior to the construction of the proposed development, the existing MTA facility will be relocated off-site, and the uses on-site will be consolidated with other MTA uses, including the emergency response unit operations adjacent to Blackstreet Park. Lot 1 will remain under MTA ownership with a 99-year land lease to construct the proposed development. The MTA facility on the site will be relocated off-site to 213 Meadow Street, a new facility constructed in the North Brooklyn Industrial Business Zone. The construction of this facility is not subject to the proposed actions. The proposed development is a 939,588 square foot, 7.13 FAR development, including 1,150 units, 300 of which would be income restricted, 25,700 square feet of commercial use, 36,000 square feet community facility use, including a permanent home for the Monitor Museum, and a 44,500 square foot publicly accessible open space. The development consists of 3 buildings. Building 1, the largest building in the mixed-use commercial and residential development. Building 1 fronts Key Street and would have a 60-foot tall street wall. After setting back 10 to 15 feet above the base, a podium would rise to an additional height of 152 feet before splitting into 2 towers, which would rise to a total height of 600 feet, 52 stories, at the west tower, and 450 feet, or 41 stories, at the east tower, connected at the base of the development. The towers and podiums are angled to respond to the irregular street grid at the site. Between Building 1 and 2 is the proposed upland connection, or park portal, which will connect West Street to Bushwick Inlet Park to the south. Building 2 is a mixed-use commercial and community facility and residential development, which would step down in height, moving west to east, beginning at the tallest portion of the development, which would rise to a height of 230 feet, or 21 stories, and step down to 190 feet, 18 stories, to the shortest portion of the development at 130 feet, 12 stories, as it steps down into the upland neighborhood. Building 3 at the far west of the development is the proposed future permanent home of the Monitor Museum, a building that would rise to a max height of 75 feet, 3 to 4 stories, to accommodate programmatic needs, and is adjacent to the East River and the proposed Monitor waterfront. This is a ground floor plan illustrating the proposed development and ground floor programming. As noted in previous slides, the ground floor reflects responses to infrastructure constraints on site. And in the following slides, I'll go through the plans in more detail, beginning with the western half of the development, which includes Building 1 and 3, the Monitor Museum. Building 1 contains 716,000 square feet of residential uses, approximately 950 units, 248 of which would be income restricted, and a 24,000 square foot commercial uses on the first and second floors. The building would be accessed via Key Street, with commercial uses activating the ground floor along the upland connection and adjacent to the museum building. Building 1 would curve around a proposed 36-foot radius turnaround and curb cut to the western end of Key Street, which provides access to the cellar containing 140 parking spaces, additional area for trash compactor, and area for DSNY trucks to enter and load. Building 3, the museum building, would contain 33,000 square feet of community facility uses across 3 to 4 stories. The museum entrance would be located off the proposed turnaround and adjacent to the Monitor Museum waterfront and shore public walkway. Building 2 would contain 160,000 square feet of residential uses, approximately 200 units, 52 of which would be income restricted, 900 square feet of commercial uses, and 3,000 square feet of community facility uses. This building is upland and on the eastern side of the upland connection, accessed via Key Street, with community facility space adjacent to the publicly accessible open space, and retail off Key Street near Franklin Street, activating the frontage. The project area is within the BK1 WAP, as mentioned previously, which outlines the project area as 2 parcels, parcel 19 and 15, and mandates a shore public walkway along the waterfront on parcel 19 and an upland connection and visual corridor at the prolongation of West Street. The development would contain 36,000 square feet of required WPAA waterfront public access area space and 11,000 square feet of additional publicly accessible open space, for a total of 45,383 square feet between the Monitor waterfront and Park Portal open space areas. The proposed open space meets the requirements for access of subgrade infrastructure, exceeds the required square footage, navigates complex site requirements, and will contain native plantings, seating options, movable chairs and tables. The proposed shore public walkway is a critical connection between the waterfront to the north and the south towards Bushwick Inlet Park. This is a view of the Monitor waterfront facing east towards Bushwick Inlet Park. This portion of the Monitor waterfront will connect to the Motiva site of Bushwick Inlet Park. This is a view of the Monitor waterfront looking west towards the East River. It illustrates the reinforced shoreline design to mitigate complex grading challenges on site. This is a view of the Park Portal upland connection facing the south at the end of West Street, where pedestrians can continue to Bushwick Inlet Park. The proposed design is wider than the required 60 feet to provide an entrance to the park and accommodate a widened pedestrian path and water feature. This is another image illustrating the Monitor waterfront and efforts made to provide connectivity to the site to the north, seating options, homage to the maritime history of the Monitor Museum, and shoreline connectivity. The applicant is seeking a series of actions to facilitate the proposed development. I'll outline each action in the following slides. The applicant proposes to rezone the project area from an M31 R6 and R6 C24 zoning districts to an R6, R6 C24 R8, and R8 C24 zoning districts. Within the BK1 waterfront access plan, underlying FAR regulations that permit a maximum FAR that is less than what is permitted for MIH developments as of right outside of the WAP. Our 6 districts within the WAP permit a maximum overall FAR of 4.8, with 3.05 FAR for qualified affordable housing / senior housing, and 4.8 FAR for community facility FAR. The proposed district would permit MIH FAR across the project area, permitting a maximum FAR of 4.8, FAR for community facility, and residential max FAR of 3.9. Maximum FAR for R8 districts within the WAP is 6.5 FAR. The proposed district would permit MIH FAR of R8 districts at 7.2 FAR. C2 for commercial overlays permit 2 FAR within the WAP and would continue to permit 2 FAR commercial uses within the proposed districts. The applicant is seeking, the applicant seeks to amend Appendix F to designate the project area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area pursuant to options 1 and 2. Option 1 requires the affordable housing to be set aside at 25% of the residential floor area at an average of 60% AMI, area median income. The option 2 requires 30% of the residential floor area to be provided at an average of 80% AMI. The applicant is proposing 1,150 units, 300 of which would be permanently income restricted under MIH option 1. In addition, text amendments to amend the special bulk regulations applicable to waterfront blocks in the BK1 waterfront access plan area. As the first MIH project being mapped on waterfront blocks within the WAP area, the applicant first must propose to amend ZR section 62361 to establish a reference to MIH bulk regulations within the special bulk regulations that apply to the waterfront. Second, to accommodate an MIH FAR and tower-based envelope for R8 that is higher than the current R8 special bulk regulations, the text would permit a maximum height of between 500 to 600 feet for R8 districts within the BK1 WAP area. Third, to align with proposed demapping of Key Street that is currently mapped as Parkland, the text would remove the park designation from parcel 19 and in the BK1 WAP maps. And lastly, the text would allow large-scale general developments within the BK1 WAP to waive or reduce the number of required loading berths if certain findings are met. To provide more background and context for the text amendment, currently there are special FAR and bulk regulations that apply to a portion of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg waterfront that were created as a part of the 2005 rezoning. Specifically, waterfront blocks mapped with R6, R8 districts within the WAP geography have unique heights and FAR that are customized for the waterfront and also accommodate voluntary-based income-restricted housing. For example, R8 districts permit a maximum FAR of 6.5 and a height of 360 feet. Since Monitor Point would be the first application to map MIH in the WAP area where these special regulations apply, the applicant proposes to add a reference to MIH FARs for R6 and R8, which would be aligned with underlying MIH FARs. So instead of an R8 with a custom FAR, as it does for non-MIH developments, R8 MIH would have a maximum FAR of 7.2. In tandem with these changes in FAR, in MIH areas, the applicant also seeks to increase permitted height in R8 districts to 500 feet or up to 600 feet for lots with multiple buildings, and where more than half of the buildings are built below a height of 440 feet. To elaborate more on the text amendment related to the WAP parcel, the 2005 Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning designated parcels of the zoning lot for the zoning lots within the WAP, including parcel 19, which, as mentioned, is owned by the Monitor Museum and was designated as public park. In conjunction with the proposal to demap a portion of Key Street that is currently mapped as Parkland, the applicant seeks to remove the park designation from parcel 19 and referenced on the BK1 WAP maps. The applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to a large-scale general development for a series of waivers to modify rear yard regulations, modify building height and setback regulations, tower size and tower width of walls, and waterfront yard depth. The special permit requires that the CPC find that the distribution of floor area, open space, dwelling units, and location of buildings will result in better site plan with superior landscaping and a better relationship among buildings and open spaces adjacent to streets and existing context. The applicant has stated that the ability to distribute floor area to locate certain buildings without regard to rear yards and height and setback regulations will result in a better overall site plan, the development that better meets its stated goals and addresses site-specific conditions. Specifically, the proposed modifications would permit a greater portion of the development to redistribute bulk to accommodate easements on the property, to increase open space that can be configured to maximize usability, facilitate a standalone museum, and better relationship with open space on site and adjacent to Bushwick Inlet Park. As discussed prior, the bulk of the envelope would be established as a part of the special permit approvals, would consist of a proposed building 1 tower rising to a height of 600 feet and 450 feet, building 2 to a total height of 230 feet as the development steps down into the neighborhood, as well as the 75-foot tall museum building at building 3. Building 1, the largest portion of the development, would have a height and setback waivers at 5 feet to provide a 10-foot setback in areas in yellow. In addition, the applicant seeks tower width waivers in dark blue to permit a podium connecting the towers between the heights of 105 and 152 feet. The applicant believes the bulk modifications to street wall setback and tower heights and tower wall widths would allow Building 1 to have an efficient building configuration in response to the irregular shape of the development site. Building 2, the upland building, seeks height and setback waivers to permit a base height of 130 feet and 230 feet without setback, compared to 65 feet. In addition, the applicant seeks street wall height and location waivers in light blue. Under current regulation, 70% of the street wall must be located within 8 feet of the upland connection and visual corridor, and that street wall must rise to a minimum height of 30 feet. To set back Building 2 from the upland connection visual corridor and to accommodate the public access area highlighted in light blue, the applicant seeks a waiver to locate the street wall 48 feet from the upland connection, with a small portion having a height of 25 feet. The applicant notes that the development site significantly narrows in depth as it moves east, ending at a depth of only 48 feet along the eastern lot line. As a result, the waivers for maximum base height, initial setback distance, maximum building height are needed for sufficient floor plate depth and to accommodate a reasonable residential layout. The applicant also seeks a waiver for waterfront yard requirements for a portion of Building 3, the museum building. Under existing regulation, there's a 40-foot depth requirement for waterfront yard on waterfront zoning lots along the entire length of the shoreline, bulkhead, or stabilized natural shore, whichever is furthest inland. The applicant proposes 12%, or approximately 90 feet, to be 30 feet wide, a 10-foot reduction, to facilitate the Monitor Museum building. The applicant notes that this waiver is to accommodate Monitor Museum's programming, along with necessary support spaces and circulation. As shown in the diagram, the museum building would increase from 50 feet at the northern edge to 60 feet to the south. The front yard waiver is required for the portion of the yard adjacent to the museum where the museum's width is greater than 50 feet. Additionally, the bulk special permit approvals include building design controls that address aspects including bulkhead screening of mechanicals, building setbacks, street wall articulation, and transparency requirements. For the second special permit, the applicant seeks to waive the requirement for one loading berth on site if certain findings are met related to traffic congestion, movement of goods, the relationship to street walls and adjacent sidewalks, and the effects on nearby developments. According to the applicant, they're proposing a smaller commercial establishment that they do not anticipate need for loading berths to move materials, and as noted in the EIS, the projected number of vehicles are minimal, expected at 4 vehicles within the weekday peak hours. In addition, the applicant anticipates move-in and out to occur within the accessory parking garage at the cellar level, and the applicant proposes residential trash removal adjacent to the parking garage to accommodate self-compacting container and service for DSNY trucks. The applicant also proposes a city map change within the application 250326 MMK to remove the park designation mapped on block 2590, lot 25, and the northern half of former Key Street. The area was originally mapped as park. The area to be demapped was originally mapped as park in 2005 as a part of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning. This property was the northernmost parcel of Bushwick Inlet Park, providing connectivity from waterfront public access areas in Williamsburg to those in Greenpoint. However, there was, at the time, significant community support for the establishment of the Monitor Museum on the property. The Monitor Museum organization owned the property and did not wish to sell to the city. In response, in a 2012 letter, the Parks Department stated publicly that they would not acquire the site. The expectation was that the museum, if developed, would include waterfront public access area that would provide the critical connection along the water. And that is what is proposed today. Therefore, the applicant is proposing to demap the park designation from the lot to clear title to the land and facilitate the proposed development. A notice of completion of the draft environmental impact statement was issued December 12th, 2025, and identified significant adverse impacts with respect to transportation, traffic, and pedestrians, as well as construction as it relates to traffic, pedestrian, and noise. Mitigation measures are identified in the DEIS, and that will be further explored in the final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. Pursuant to Local Law 78 of 2021, this application requires racial equity report on housing and opportunity because it would increase the permitted residential floor area by at least 50,000 square feet. The applicant states that the proposal would include 1,150 units and approximately 300 of which income restricted under MIH option 1 in the location that has an annual median income of approximately $102,000. Based on the 2020 census, 7% of the population identifies as Asian non-Hispanic, roughly 7 to 9% lower than the rest of the borough and city, respectively. At the highest, 61% of the population identified as white non-Hispanic, as compared to 35% within Brooklyn and 31% within the city. 22% of the population identifies as Hispanic Latino of any race, as compared to 19% and 28% of the borough and city, respectively. At the lowest, 5% identify as Black non-Hispanic, where over 15 to 22% is of the borough and the city, respectively. Between 2010 and 2020, Asian non-Hispanic population in the area increased at the highest rate at 57%, compared to 43% and 34% increases in Brooklyn and the city, respectively. The Black non-Hispanic population increased by 19%, compared to a decrease of 9% and 5% for the borough and the city, respectively. Hispanic Latino population decreased by 3%, compared to an increase of 4% at the borough and 7% citywide. And the white non-Hispanic population of the area increased by 18%, with an 8% increase in Brooklyn. However, there's been 0% change in the city as a whole. Figure 14 shows the percent change in housing supply and population from 2010 to 2024. During this time, housing units in the area increased by 41%, while the population increased by 18%. Housing production and population change has exceeded both the borough and the city change by over 30% increase in housing supply and an increase of 10% in population change. To conclude, the applicant seeks a series of actions, including a zoning map amendment, zoning text amendment, large-scale special permits to waive loading requirements, and a city map amendment to facilitate the development of a new 3-building development, which would include 1,150 residential units, 300 of which would be income restricted pursuant to MIH option 1, a new permanent home for the Monitor Museum, and over 44,000 square feet of publicly accessible open space. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Excellent job on a complicated proposal, so thank you. I do want to note Commissioner Cerullo is recused on this item, and I just wanted to go back to the DEP easements for a moment. Those are all existing easements today, correct? These are not new actions. This is not something that is being newly implemented here. Is that right?
Correct. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the slide.
Yeah, let's go. Have a look.
This is infrastructure that exists currently subgrade, so both along Key Street and then West Street.
Okay. all exist, all that pink area already exists as easements.
Correct.
Okay, and then you have this dotted red line, which is DEC jurisdiction, but it's just along that dotted line?
Yes, dotted line into the south. So it's the area to the south of that dotted line.
Oh, I see. It's everything to the south.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let me go to Commissioner Goodrich.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. So from what I understand, the community is split on this project, and this is what I've gathered. The city promised to build the Bushwick Inlet Park as part of the Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning in 2005. And now, today, the park remains incomplete. And then there's this project, and the environmental report shows significant environmental impacts, like such as cast of shadows, what, as you said, the tallest building, I think it's 18 stories, and some impacts on the inlet and the river. And so my first question is, we know that from the report that the project will have environmental impacts, but as of now, has the applicant made any changes to mitigate any of those impacts, or are they just, is there no way to mitigate them at all?
I think maybe where I'll start is that this site is, so the pieces of these sites to the south for Bushwick Inlet Park Motiva is nearly complete. Maybe I'll start with the park, and then I'll talk about environmental impacts.
The park is complete.
No, so the Bushwick Inlet Park is a 36-acre park. I'll see if I can find a better map. The portion just south of this site, here we go. There's a portion just south of the site called the Motiva parcel of Bushwick Inlet, and it is, trying to pull up it's 99.5% complete, that portion. There is a portion beneath that is, not complete yet, but it's under construction. And the Marsha P. Johnson, I don't have like a section of each area, but the portion that's adjacent to the south is nearly complete, 99.5% complete, and anticipated opening of 2026 after some follow-up actions with parks, permitting and such. In terms of the environmental impact of the site, I know you mentioned shadows and other impacts. I just wanted to also note.
I read the shadows and then impact on the inlet and the river.
Sure. Okay. So the DAS has a shadow analysis for the proposed development and concluded that shadow resources would occur for brief periods during the morning hours, but that it is not an adverse, it's limited and temporary in duration. And in terms of the critical habitat as well, there's critical shoreline stabilization happening as a part of the development, and construction of the proposed development in the EIS as well was listed as not resulting in, it would result in temporary impacts to wildlife at the development site, but that the applicant team to best adhere to management best practices and regulatory requirements for construction. It's not as a part of the EIS, it's not listed as a part of, here we go, back and forth on a lot of slides. Not listed as a significant adverse impact, transportation and construction, but if anyone else has things to add. In terms of, I'm happy to follow up as well if there are more questions in terms of the.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so there are impacts, but they're not significant and they're only temporary.
That is, no, sorry?
I only ask because the way the community has flagged it is sort of like, it's enough for them to, I don't know, there's like a few news articles about it. So I just wanted to be clear about what it is they're saying.
Yeah, I'll just add to see that we definitely hear those concerns, but just want to clarify, for the purposes of the DEIS, impacts were not identified for open space or shadows, but they were identified for transportation and construction in those categories. So just want to make sure that's clear.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Thank you. And then my second question is, one of the other issues that the community noted is that the scale of the project, because it is massive, that it being next to this public park might make the park seem like it's a private park. And I go to Bushwick a lot, but I couldn't remember like what exactly this area looked like. And I think maybe the best slide, I think it was around 28, 29. So my first question was, there's the park, the inlet park, but then there's this like walkway that you showed, I think it was 28, 29. And I wanted to know if that was a public walkway or if that was a private.
Yes, it's the Shore Public Walkway, which is proposed to follow the shoreline, would be a public walkway.
Okay, so
publicly accessible walkway.
See if I can find it at least. Because it looks very similar to the Domino, to the one in, oh my God, what's that neighborhood? I actually think it's Williamsburg. So when you reached that, because I have it here, 28. Yeah. So do you have to walk behind the building to get to that walkway, or is it just like, it's, let me just ask my main question.
Okay.
I wonder if, since this is a community concern, if there's anything like signage or anything that can be done to make it clear that this is like a public space, if it might be confusing for people and they have to walk behind this building, that they might think that that's just for the residents of the building. That's something else that they flag.
It's my understanding that that's a requirement as a part of the Shore Public Walkway is signage, that it's public. And I should also note that the Bushwick Inlet Park is adjacent to Franklin Street, and there's this portion that is closest to this site. It will connect via this walkway and as well down from West Street. So there are multiple proposed entry points as well as entry points off of Franklin Street as well.
Great, thank you.
Once completed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I had a question about the platform and how it fits over the outfall in the PA. The outfall from the diagrams looks like it's going to be partially under that. Yeah.
So the outfall, my understanding, is actually at Key Street. So the section that you were looking at is further south. So the portion that the infrastructure is under.
You had the slide up that showed the 3 different outfalls.
Okay. Here we go. Yes.
Yeah. So the outfall that's the kind of furthest west, that shows it going underneath and through Bushwick Inlet Park.
Yes.
But right now, I believe some of that is currently underwater. Is that correct? Or is soft surface?
I'm going to have to get
Okay.
back to you on that.
Okay, the question is, and if you could get back to me or someone else, how the outlet will be treated underneath the park and what measures DEP will be taking
to make sure that it doesn't become a problem. I know that in some cases where these plazas have extended and there is some water or some storm, that things get stuck and recycle underneath the park and it becomes a problem. So I'd like to understand how that is going to work and what DEP's plans are to maintain it and to keep the area clean of detritus, et cetera. Okay, my second question is, also you can get back to me, is on the apartment distribution by size. And the third one, which it had a column for it, but in the slide from the racial equity report, it didn't show an amount for what the market rate rents were.
Yes,
Yeah.
here we go.
The market rate rents are not there. So I'd like to know what they are, what they anticipate, so that I can take a look and feel that I have some idea whether people who live in an area whose median income is $102,000 will be able to afford any of the market rate apartments. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann?
Just a few questions. On the Monitor Museum, just to drill down on that one in particular. So is the idea that the museum would be a standalone museum separate from Building 3?
Correct.
I've got the...
Yeah. Here we go. It will be right next to Building 1,
yeah.
But it will not be a part of Building 1.
Okay. And so it's the Monitor Museum's job to fundraise and build that building, meaning the developer is not providing that as part of the package of public benefits here. Is that the idea?
I'm happy to have the applicant answer that question. I can follow up as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to understand what happens to that site if the museum doesn't get built under the zoning proposed?
The waterfront public access area, I believe, must be opened before the buildings are occupied. So in terms of the waterfront access area, but for the footprint of the museum building itself, I'll follow up to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm not just might just be me, but I've got a little bit of skepticism about a very niche museum being able to build a 50,000 square foot building on the waterfront here. And so I'm just curious what the sort of plan B option was, because they've owned the site for years and years. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So just want to try to understand what's a realistic plan B if that, as we all know, cultural institutions are not easy to seek funding for buildings of this scale. So that's just question one. On the overall site plan and the zoning boundaries, I know why the applicant probably didn't want to include the site on Franklin, but I'm curious why the department didn't encourage the applicant to also look at the sort of triangular wedge on Franklin. If you go to the zoning map, it strikes me a little strange, a zoning map here, where you've got parcels, and I can't remember the last time I've seen a triangle that sharp on a zoning map, but just curious why the department didn't encourage, and at least in upzoning to an R7, to include MIH there, because it seems a little strange to have MIH on the waterfront and then the immediately adjacent site at the R6 without the MIH.
Thank you for the question. I would just say that this is the applicant's proposal, and they can speak to the land use rationale at the public hearing, but noting your question here.
Okay. Yeah, if we're opening up the zoning for the Greenpoint Williamsburg waterfront, it seems like it'd be at least worthwhile looking at the immediately adjacent site there. And I think, again, thinking about MIH is maybe one of the policy goals. Just on the overall site plan and kind of the open space and as opposed to the development footprint, you mentioned that the two towers were configured so as to allow view corridors, and I didn't, maybe again, this is just my lack of understanding, I didn't totally understand the urban design rationale for these buildings, and with such a large podium across the buildings, when something that would have allowed public circulation through the towers to the waterfront felt to me more generous, given the scale of these buildings and given the scale of the podium. So can you just speak a little bit to the urban design rationale here? Because I'm struggling a little bit to understand it.
Sure. I think what you're noting as well is that I referenced the applicant's rationale in terms of the irregular street grid, and that is why they're kind of turned in terms of instead of they're at an angle. But I'm happy to pass the question along for the applicant team about their specific design goals in terms of how these towers are configured.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think obviously, mapping MIH on the Greenpoint waterfront, I think there's a lot of value there. I'm just, as far as I can tell, and please correct me if I'm getting this wrong, there's no more open space being provided than would be required under the R6 as of right zoning. They're just doing the waterfront public access and then the DEP easement. Is that, am I mistaken there?
I have a breakdown actually.
Okay, great.
Okay. So this is the required waterfront public access area is about 25,600 square feet.
Yep.
And what's being provided is 34,000 square feet. And that does not include the additional publicly accessible open space at 11,000 square feet. So with the WPA and PA totals, it'll be about 44,000 square feet.
Got it. And when you say the additional, I just want to make sure I have that correct. Is that that's the UC1, which is the West Street kind of extension?
It's so for the additional PAA, it's around, it's in the darker green. So we have around the Upland Connection 1, there's the PAA 1 and PAA 2. There's a small sliver of PAA 3 along the Shore Public Walkway, and then PAA 4 on the top left side of the image.
So those are not required under the waterfront regulations, but the applicant is proposing them as part of the waterfront open space, just so I'm making sure I'm understanding the regulatory?
Yeah, portions of it. So yes, in short, yes, there's the additional PAAs adjacent to the Upland Connection. The Upland Connection is a requirement of the waterfront public access area, and then the Shore Public Walkway is also a requirement, but they're exceeding both of those square footage. They're exceeding the square footage of the overall WPAA by about 10,000 square feet.
Got it. Okay, but the UC1, isn't that the DEP easement geography? Am I getting that wrong?
Yes.
Right. So if I'm getting this wrong, please correct me. But nobody can build there because DEP's got an easement. So they're dedicating it as open space, but it's not buildable. If I'm getting that right?
It's sort of two things. One, you're correct that it cannot build within that zone, but that's also because one of the infrastructure underground, but also because of the WAP requirements that this be an upland or visual corridor, so it must be open anyways. And so it's sort of yes to both.
Got it. Yeah, I guess what I was just trying to make sure I understood was the delta between what the as of right open space requirements are and what they're proposing here. And it sounds like the UC1 at least, which is most of that additional, couldn't be built on, and also is a visual corridor requirement. So is that really additional open space?
I have to get back to you on the square footage of what the DEP easement would require in terms of not building on that area, but it exceeds what is required in the zoning resolution.
Yeah, I guess just again, the broader point here is that there's, I think there's value in reopening Greenpoint to look for affordable housing opportunities, but I think the open space, given the level of density, feels to me a little thin, frankly, and obviously there's a lot of open space in the area, which is wonderful and great, but this is a lot of scale here on a pretty tight site with pretty narrow streets. So I hope the applicant's open to kind of continuing to iterate there. And then just finally on I apologize, I'm steering Commissioner Osorio's question, but I couldn't resist on this one. Just on the 100-year floodplain and the elevation of this site. So this is all in 100-year, right? And the shoreline here is not very sturdy, for lack of a better word. It's crumbling. So they're elevating the site pursuant to Appendix G out of the 100-year?
Yes. So the applicant has noted the grading for flood resiliency, and current sites are currently at 9 feet above curb level, so both the MTA and the Monitor Museum site, and they must be raised to about 17 feet for residential uses, and also tie into the Bushwick Inlet Park pathway, which is at an elevation of 5 feet. So they'll be elevating.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of sort of ramping to get up and down. And also understand the elevation change on Key Street, as the site goes down to Franklin. Is that all just graded down, basically?
I think I'll follow back up about that grading question.
Yeah. And I just would note here on for what it's worth, the Waterfront Alliance, which does the wedge guidelines, noted, I think, in their testimony in this application that they were hoping for more additional freeboard, essentially, on the site because they believe the risks were higher. And so I'd be just, again, curious to explore this more, given that the shoreline is so deteriorated here today. This is obviously I will note that the Monitor Museum has had an effort to stabilize the shoreline, and as a part of this application, it'll be further stabilized, and which will include a brand new bulkhead and additional features in terms of shoreline stabilization. Right. Yeah. Again, on the Monitor Museum, I think my question is really just about the resources of one very, very small, as far as I understand, nonprofit to actually deliver on that and also build a new building. That seems perhaps stretch. And so I'm just trying to understand the plan B there in that instance. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. We have Commissioners Rampersad, Knuckles, Vice Chair Knuckles, and Commissioner Osorio. I'll just note we've been on this item for about an hour and 10 minutes, and we do have some scheduling issues, so I just ask you to keep it brief. Commissioner Rampersad?
I'll be brief, and you can get back to me when you get a chance. With regards to DEP and the sewer easements, are there any proposed changes or changes to the infrastructure within those easements? And has the applicant worked with the DEP team to coordinate that? And the other question I had was with regards to Quay Street. I saw that as one way in front of the building number 2. Do you know what the rationale was for not making it two-way there? You can get back to me.
Could you repeat the
for Quay Street?
Yeah.
It shows one way in front of building number 2. And then I guess it's going up to make so you can make a right on West Street. So I'm just curious why Quay wasn't two-way.
I think it's currently a one-way, and I believe there's also bike infrastructure. It's the width of the street. I think that's the limiting factor, but I'm happy to also follow up on that question. And to speak, go ahead. Sorry. And
the other one was DEP with regards to, is there any proposed improvements within that easement corridor? Are they, any new infrastructure being put in, and is that being coordinated with the proposed development? I'm
happy to share that question, with the applicant team.
Thanks, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Thank you. This will hopefully be addressed in the public hearing. But I'm just looking at about the museum. The towers are constructed within or above the podium, right? And the podium seemingly wraps around those two towers. The towers will have separate access points, right, from building 3. Obviously, they'll have their own entrances.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm trying to envision when you visit the museum, building 3, what do you encounter in terms of the elements that support the towers? You follow me? When you walk into that space. I know these are schematics, so but I'm just wondering, what does that look like?
As you're walking to the museum space, so there are no, in terms of, are you wondering about like overhangs? There's no, it would be a street wall, and then.
Trying to find that slide, you know which?
24.
24.
But to answer your question, go ahead. So in theory, one could walk down Key Street, there'd be a sidewalk and turn around and then be able to enter the museum building on the corner. There's an entrance separate from the residential building, building 1.
Oh, I see. It's over here. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now wrap with Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation and for the detailedness of the materials and addressing our questions. I really appreciate that. I wanted to suggest that in this case, and given the richness of the materials in terms of the shoreline stabilization strategies, I feel that here, we should really embody the Coastal Commission kind of like role, and maybe the first suggestion request is if we can clarify a little bit how is that shoreline stabilization system as a system work, because there's a bunch of different things that are being done. To not repeat but build on what has been discussed, I would specifically like to know how is the wave action, not the inundation, but the wave action threat addressed. 2, I also want to know, in understanding consistency with the waterfront revitalization program, there are a lot of things that are claimed there that I didn't necessarily see evidence for. So, for example, how is this protecting and restoring ecological systems, specifically given the designation of Inlet Park as an recognized ecological complex? So, from my understanding, and to clarify, to ask for clarification, the DEIS didn't find significant adverse impact on this, primarily because the impacts are going to be during construction, but because this is a designated, recognized ecological complex, we should see the mitigation strategies that are anticipated for that to determine compliance with the waterfront revitalization program. Otherwise, this would be sort of like subject to potential mitigation strategies in the FEIS, and that those may or may not be clarified. So I want to elevate that here. Also to clarify, it's not that there are no impacts on open space. According to the DIS, there's a 7.7% decrease in total open space. It's just that it's not significant. That's why the DIS doesn't acknowledge that. But I think that as I've been mentioning in different waterfront rezonings, I think that this is an opportunity to echo the spirit or the opportunity to build more open space per 1,000 residents. And then there's another thing that I wanted to tell you, one final point for clarification. According to the WRP consistency form, this is supporting maritime, and it even says in relation to the significant maritime and industrial area, which is far away. So I want to understand what is really access. Is it just visual access, or in what ways is this actually facilitating waterfront, physical access? And then just finally on the wind impact analysis, there was a note in the methodology saying that this had been limited to typical weather patterns, which excluded anomalous conditions. And I understand why excluding, tornadoes, et cetera, but I want to make sure that this included hurricanes for the wind impact analysis. So again, things for us to maybe see when this comes back, but anything that you can anticipate would be extremely useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, and thank you very much for a very thorough presentation and answering all those questions. This item is certified. We're now going to move on to item 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucia. The second and third items on our agenda are certifications of a zoning map and zoning text amendments, special permits in Manhattan Community District 4, and our presenter on both items is Chelsea Evans.
Great. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay, so today I'll be presenting 801 11th Avenue, the first of 2 sets of private applications, known collectively as the DeWitt Clinton Park North applications. The DeWitt Clinton Park North applications are 2 private applications, 801 11th Avenue and 629 West 54th Street. Each project has a different owner, but they've moved together through the pre-certification process and are analyzed under one EIS. Both projects are seeking similar actions related to the Special Hudson River Park District to transfer floor area from Hudson River Park to the development sites, and both applicants are proposing 14.4 FAR mixed residential and commercial developments. I'll present the proposal at 801 11th Avenue first, the northernmost site, and then I'll move on to present the proposal to the south at 629 West 54th Street. The proposal at 801 11th Avenue is a private application by 801 11th Avenue LLC, or the Chapman Group. The applicant is requesting zoning map amendments to rezone the development site from an M23 to a C47 and to establish the Special Hudson River Park District on the project area. The applicant is also seeking zoning text amendments to Appendix F of the zoning resolution to establish an MIH area, as well as text amendments to the Special Hudson River Park District and the Special Clinton District. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a special permit pursuant to ZR Section 8921 to allow for the transfer of development rights from Hudson River Park to the development site, as well as related bulk modifications. They seek these actions in order to facilitate a 14.4 FAR mixed residential and commercial development, approximately 525 feet tall. The proposed development could include 477 to 541 dwelling units, of which 119 to 162 would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH. The development site is in the Clinton neighborhood of Manhattan Community District 4. For a little bit of background and as a brief reminder, in 2013, the state legislature adopted an amendment to the Hudson River Park Act, which allows the Hudson River Park Trust to sell unused development rights to sites within one block of the park's boundary, shown in yellow on the map to the right. In 2016, to fund urgently needed repairs on Pier 40, the City Planning Commission voted to establish the Special Hudson River Park District and simultaneously approved a private application to allow for the transfer of development rights from Pier 40 to 550 Washington Street, also known as St. John's Terminal. It was anticipated at that time that moving forward, the special district boundaries would be amended to include new granting and receiving sites, and since then, 2 private applications at Block 675 have been approved. You can see the locations of the granting piers and development sites on the map on the right. The previous applications of the special district have all included the Hudson River Park special permit to transfer floor area from the commercial park piers to the development sites, rezonings to permit residential development, various text amendments, and bulk modifications. And the DeWitt Clinton Park North applications before you today represent the proposed 4th and 5th extensions of the special district. Here you can see aerial views of both development sites oriented to the north. As shown on this slide, the 2 sites are located on the 2 blocks north of DeWitt Clinton Park and are collectively bounded by West 54th Street, 12th Avenue, West 56th Street, and 11th Avenue. Again, I'll be focusing on 801 11th Avenue first, which is outlined in yellow. This slide shows the surrounding area map oriented to the north. The proposed rezoning area, outlined here in black, is currently zoned M23 in the C1 subdistrict of the Special Clinton District. M23 zoning districts represent a middle ground between light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing uses, and the Special Clinton District was created in 1974 to preserve and strengthen the residential character of a community bordering Midtown and ensure that the community is not adversely affected by new development. The surrounding zoning districts include M15 light manufacturing, M23 and M24 intermediate manufacturing districts, and a mix of residential and commercial districts along 11th Avenue and to the east. On the same block as the development site, there are multiple commercial and industrial buildings, including the Music Venue Terminal 5, a Department of Sanitation garage and salt storage facility, and various commercial offices and retailers. The land uses in the surrounding area are a mix of industrial, open space, mixed residential and commercial buildings, and office space. Residential uses are concentrated to the north and east of the development site, as well as across the street along 11th Avenue, and the nearest subway stop is a little under 1 mile at Columbus Circle, which provides access to the A, B, C, D, and 1 line. There are also multiple bus routes that serve the surrounding area, including the M12, M31, and M57. In the photo on this slide, you can see the existing conditions on the development site. This view is looking west from 11th Avenue. The development site has about 200 feet of frontage on 11th Avenue and a total area of approximately 27,000 square feet. It's improved with 2 buildings, which are currently vacant, but most recently have been operating as a single auto dealership. To give you a sense of the built environment, I'm going to walk through a few different views of the development site and the adjacent blocks. On the left is a view looking southwest on 11th Avenue. The development site is to the right and in yellow. And across 11th Avenue is an auto dealership. The image on the right is looking northwest from 11th Avenue. You can see the development site again outlined in yellow. The taller towers, a block north of the development site, are mixed commercial and residential buildings. Here are 2 more area photographs, both showing the development site outlined in yellow. The image on the left of this slide is looking west towards the Hudson River. The development site is on the right. And then on the left is a building which houses Mount Sinai offices, car sales and service centers, as well as life sciences uses. The image on the right is a view looking west on West 56th Street. The development site is on the left. Further west on the block, closer to 12th Avenue, you can see the Department of Sanitation facility, which projects over the street. On the development site, the applicant is proposing an approximately 386,350 square foot mixed residential and commercial building that will total 14.4 FAR. The image on the right is an illustrative rendering of the proposed building space. And this image is looking north on 11th Avenue. The proposed building would rise to a height of 525 feet, and the applicant is contemplating several potential programs, which include up to 13.73 FAR of residential floor area, which would facilitate the creation of as many as 541 dwelling units, of which approximately 119 to 162 would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH. Additionally, the applicant's proposal considers up to 2.4 FAR of commercial floor area, and they've explored the option of incorporating an auto sale and service center on the ground floor of the building. The applicants are requesting several actions, which I'll describe in aggregate now and then go into more detail on the following slides. They include zoning map amendments to designate Chelsea Piers, Piers 81 and 83, and Pier 98 as granting sites for the floor area transfer from Hudson River Park, and a map amendment to designate the development site, 801 11th Avenue, as the receiving site of the available floor area. In addition, the applicants are seeking a map amendment to rezone the 801 11th Avenue rezoning area from an M23 zoning district to a C47. The applicants are also seeking a number of text amendments. First, they are requesting a text amendment to Appendix F to establish an MIH area. In addition, they're requesting zoning text amendments to the Special Hudson River Park District and the Special Clinton District, which I'll describe in further detail later on. And lastly, the applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to ZR Section 8921, which allows for the transfer of development rights from the designated granting sites to the receiving site and to allow for bulk modifications to the proposed development. Now, I'll walk through each of these actions in more detail. First, the applicant seeks a zoning map amendment to rezone the rezoning area from an M23 to a C47 zoning district to permit high-density residential and commercial development. Currently, no residential use is permitted on site. C47 districts have a residential equivalent of an R10 district, which allows up to 12 FAR for residential uses with qualifying affordable housing. Next, the applicant seeks to establish the Special Hudson River Park District on the rezoning area. As with previous extensions of the Special Hudson River Park District, this application seeks to extend the special district over the granting sites shown on this slide. They include piers identified by the Hudson River Park Trust, Piers 98, Piers 81 and 83, and Chelsea Piers, all of which are located in Manhattan Community District 4. And I'll note that the Special Hudson River Park District was already established on Chelsea Piers as a part of the Block 675 applications in 2018, and the dotted outline on the Chelsea Piers picture notes that the extension of HRP district that's a part of this application. Moving on to the requested text amendments, the applicant seeks text amendments to include the new granting and receiving sites into the special district zoning text. You can see the location of the granting and receiving sites on the map to the right. The first table on this slide shows the total available floor area on each of the granting piers, and the second table outlines how much floor area the applicant is seeking as a part of this application. They're requesting 64,392 square feet of floor area from the granting piers to eventually incorporate into the proposed development. Consistent with previous mappings of the special district, the applicant seeks zoning text amendments to modify the use and bulk regulations on the development site. The first specifies that the receiving site would continue to be governed by the M23 zoning district and that the proposed C47 use and bulk regulations would not apply until the grant and election of the special permit. Additionally, the applicant seeks to modify the use regulations of C47 districts in the special Hudson River Park district to allow for automobile dealers, including repairs, to allow for the option of maintaining an auto sales and service center on site. Next, the applicant requests a zoning text amendment to Appendix F of the zoning resolution to designate the rezoning area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area pursuant to MIH options 1 and 2, ensuring that residential development on the development site must include income-restricted housing. The map on the right of the slide is showing the Special Clinton District and its boundaries. As you can see, the 801 11th Avenue project area is situated in sub-area C1 of the special district. To reconcile the two special districts, the applicant seeks a text amendment to clarify that the requirements of the special Hudson River Park district apply to areas that are within both the special Clinton district and the special Hudson River Park district. This slide is an overview of the special permit sought by the applicant. Floor area transferred from the park to the development site via the special permit will support the completion of improvements in Hudson River Park, which I'll describe later on in this presentation. It also allows for bulk modifications on the development site. In order to grant the special permit, the Commission must find that the floor area transfer facilitates the repair, rehabilitation, maintenance, and completion of improvements to Hudson River Park. Additionally, the Commission must find that the receiving site includes a superior site plan with a complementary mix of uses, that there is adequate light and air resulting from the transfer of floor area, and that any qualifying affordable housing in the proposed development enhances the diversity of the neighborhood. And now I'll talk specifically about the special permit in the context of this application. The special permit sought by the applicant will allow for the transfer of 64,392 square feet of floor area from the granting sites to the development site. The proposed additional floor area totals 2.4 FAR, or 20% of the 12 FAR permitted in this district. In combination with the proposed rezoning to a C47 district, the total proposed FAR allowed on the development site is 14.4 for either commercial or residential uses. And finally, the applicant is requesting a waiver to modify the street wall location requirements that apply to the development site. The waiver shown in green on the plan to the right would allow a portion of the street wall of the building along 11th Avenue to not be located at the street line. Proceeds from the floor area transfer facilitated by this application will be directed towards the removal of the existing Pier 76 and its replacement with a structure capable of supporting a new park, as well as the installation of pier deck utilities and park amenities. 20% of the transfer funds will serve as a reserve for future capital maintenance needs. As I mentioned earlier, the DeWitt Clinton Park North applications had a combined EIS. The notice of completion of the draft environmental impact statement was issued on December 12, 2025. The DEIS identified significant adverse impacts with respect to transportation, traffic, and buses, as well as construction impacts. No other significant adverse impacts were identified. Mitigation measures to address these impacts were identified in the DEIS and will be further explored in the final environmental impact statement. And now moving on to the racial equity report, which applies to both this application and 629 West 54th Street. According to the Equitable Development Data Explorer, the median household income for the Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen Puma is $117,857, which is higher than Manhattan and New York City. As you can see on the map on this slide, this neighborhood has a lower displacement risk compared to other New York City neighborhoods. The median estimated monthly rent for a family making 60% AMI for a studio apartment is $1,630, and for a two-bedroom apartment, that number is $2,190. As of 2020, more than half of the Chelsea Hell's Kitchen neighborhood was comprised of white non-Hispanic individuals, which is more than Manhattan and significantly more than New York City as a whole. From 2010 to 2020, the population grew by 28% in the Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, which is much higher than Manhattan and New York City, which grew at around 7 to 8%. Black and Asian populations saw the largest percentage increases in the area. Asian non-Hispanic populations increased by 71% in the neighborhood between 2010 and 2020, and Black non-Hispanic populations grew by 43% over the same time period. The Hispanic and Latino population grew by 28%, and the white population increased by 12%. Over the past 14 years, the neighborhood experienced a 30% growth in housing supply compared to 9% in Manhattan and 10% in New York City. This chart shows that housing production has exceeded population growth from 2010 to 2024. In summary, 801 11th Avenue LLC is requesting a number of land use actions, including zoning map amendments, zoning text amendments, and a special permit to facilitate the construction of a 14.4 FAR, 386,350 square foot mixed residential and commercial building in Manhattan Community District 4. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Let me see if there are questions for you. Commissioner Mann?
I had one question about the relationship of the funding coming from these transfers and the improvements that HRPT is proposing. Because I think one of the findings is that basically the commission determines that the funding is sufficient for the improvements that are outlined. And the reconstruction of Pier 76 strikes me as quite a expensive proposition. So, and the HRPT letter didn't really talk in that much specificity around the budget they have for that project and the relationship to this funding. So I was just curious if we had any more information about that point.
Yeah, my understanding is that the transfer proceeds are sufficient to cover the cost of the proposed improvements, and I believe that's included in the letter from the Hudson River Park Trust. But I can also, flag that question for them, and we can get a response for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I think that the letter didn't allude to any specificity around the budget, at least as far as I could tell, for Pier 76 reconstruction. And the reconstruction of the pier, as far as I understand, is the project here, which is a significant undertaking. So, it would be great to understand the budget of that and actually what the proportion of the proceeds that would cover that. Because removal of that pier and its replacement with a new structure capable of supporting the park is a big ticket item.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. Two quick questions. One, actually building on Commissioner Mann's question is, can we learn a little bit more in terms of who is going to oversee the fund, the transfer, the funder that will receive the resources from the transfer of development rights, and whether or not there's community engagement in that? Like, if you can explain a little bit what's the plan there. And then the second one had to do with satisfying the condition of community diversity. I mean, again, kind of elevating the special Clinton district, original anti-harassment strategies, et cetera. I'm wondering, what are the opportunities here to make sure that, we can rest assured that that's going to be met?
Sure. I can address the first question about the public review process. So the Hudson River Park Act requires that the Board of Directors for the Hudson River Park Trust undertake a significant action process, which requires public review and public comment period. So, the construction of park amenities is, I have on this slide, to be determined, because those are based off of community input. So a similar process was done for the Block 675 applications and the St. John's Terminal applications, the previous mappings of the special district. And then your second question related to the findings.
Can I quickly just ask a follow-up question on that? Thank you. That's very useful. But can we actually suggest direct community engagement as part of decision-making in terms of the management of the fund? Not necessarily through the commission, but directly?
To the Hudson River Park Trust? Mm-hmm. I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
And then your second question related to the findings?
Yeah, so one of the findings is the commission should find that that we're guaranteeing diversity, community diversity. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering, how can we actually determine that? And I was just bringing into account the fact that the special Clinton district had really interesting strategies when it was created, like, for example, all of the anti-harassment strategies, et cetera. So I'm thinking about secondary displacement here, but would love to hear your thoughts in terms of, how can we be proactive in that regard?
Sure, yeah, I can definitely get back to you on that. We can take a look at, you know, what was done for the previous applications and follow up with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, all right, this item's certified. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, I'll now be presenting the second private application seeking similar actions at 629 West 54th Street. The applicant, 760 12th Avenue, LLC, or Friedland Properties, is requesting zoning map amendments, zoning text amendments, and a special permit pursuant to ZR 8921. The actions would facilitate a 14.4 FAR mixed residential and commercial development, approximately 590 feet tall, with up to 701 dwelling units, up to 210 of which would be permanently income restricted, at 629 West 54th Street in Manhattan Community District 4. Here's the project context slide again. You can see the development site outlined in yellow. And then here's the map of the same area we saw previously. The development site and rezoning area are coterminous and are outlined in yellow and black. The project area is currently zoned M24 in sub-area C2 of the Special Clinton District. On the same block as the development site is a large life sciences facility and commercial office space, as well as an auto sales and service center. Here's a closer look at the existing conditions on the development site. The development site has approximately 201 feet of frontage along 12th Avenue and 175 feet of frontage on West 54th and West 55th Streets. The lot is approximately 35,000 square feet in area and is improved with a 6-story auto dealership. Here are two photos of the development site. The photo on the left is a view of the site looking southeast from the corner of West 55th Street and the West Side Highway. The photo on the right is a view looking east onto West 55th Street. The development site is outlined in yellow, and the Department of Sanitation facility is on the left. The image on the left is a view looking towards the Hudson River from West 54th Street. The Whitclendon Park, a 5.83-acre public park just south of the development site, can be seen on the left, and the image on the right is looking east from the intersection of West 54th Street and the West Side Highway, and the development site is shown on the left. On the development site, the applicant is proposing a 506,000 square foot mixed residential and commercial building that will total 14.4 FAR. The image on the right is an illustrative rendering of the proposed building space. This view is looking northeast from the West Side Highway. The proposed building would rise to a height of 590 feet, and the applicant is contemplating several potential programs, which include up to 13.76 FAR of residential floor area. The applicant's proposal would facilitate the creation of as many as 701 dwelling units, of which 154 to 210 will be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH. Additionally, the applicant's proposal considers up to 2.4 FAR of commercial floor area, and they've contemplated maintaining the auto dealership that exists on the development site today. The applicants are seeking several actions to facilitate the proposed development. The actions are very similar to the first application, but I'll be sure to call out the important differences as we move through the next slides. First, the applicant seeks a zoning map amendment to rezone the site from an M24 to a C47 district. M24 districts currently allow for 5 FAR of manufacturing uses. A C47 district allows for up to 12 FAR of residential uses with qualifying affordable housing. This application will be establishing the Special Hudson River Park District on the same granting sites as its sister application at 801 11th Avenue. In addition, it will extend the Special Hudson River Park District over the rezoning area. Like with the other application, the applicant is requesting zoning text amendments to the Special Hudson River Park District in order for the zoning text to reflect the granting and receiving sites. And same as 801 11th Avenue and previous applications, the applicant seeks to modify the use and bulk regulations on the receiving site. The first specifies that the receiving site would continue to be governed by the M24 zoning district, in the proposed C47 use and bulk regulations would not apply until the grant and election of the special permit. And the applicant is requesting the same text amendment as the other application to allow for the modification of use regulations in a C47 district to allow for auto dealerships and service centers. The applicant also seeks a text amendment to designate the project area as an MIH area, as well as the same text amendment previously described to modify the special Clinton district. The special permit pursuant to ZR 8921 sought by the applicant will allow for the transfer of 84,349 square feet of floor area from the granting sites to the development site at 629 West 54th Street. As a result of the transfer, the proposed total floor area allowed on the development site is 14.4 FAR. The bulk waivers sought by this application are distinct from the previous one. First, the applicant seeks a waiver of minimum base height requirements along 12th Avenue and small portions of West 54th and West 55th Streets, shown in green. The applicant is requesting to waive minimum base height requirements to allow for a base height of 20 feet, which is lower than the 60-foot requirement. Additionally, the applicant seeks waivers of maximum base height and setback requirements. Shown in blue, the applicant is seeking a waiver to allow for a maximum base height of 177 feet along West 55th Street, which is greater than the permitted 155 feet. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a waiver to allow a setback of 10 feet from West 54th Street, which is less than the required 15 feet. And the location of that waiver is shown in red. Like with the last application, proceeds from the floor area transfer will be directed to Pier 76 and future capital maintenance needs. The environmental review and racial equity report is the same as what was presented for 801 11th Avenue, so I'll skip through these slides for now. We can come back if there are any questions. In summary, the applicant, 760 12th Avenue LLC, is requesting zoning map amendments, zoning text amendments, and a special permit pursuant to ZR 8921 to facilitate a 14.4 FAR mixed residential and commercial development at 629 West 54th Street, Manhattan Community District 4. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you. Let me see if there are questions about this one. Commissioner Mann?
I wanted to follow up on my prior question about the HRPT funding being determined sufficient for the projects they identified, because I read through the letter again and it said that should it be determined at a later date that all or a portion of the designated proceeds are not needed for the project, then the trust will explain what they're being used for. So I'm just was trying to understand what the actual link is between the money that's being received from the transfer and the project, because the way that I read the findings is that we need to be clear that, hey, the money's being used for this and it's sufficient for being used for this. But the letter seems to say, well, if we don't want to use it for that, we may use it for something else. So I was just trying to understand how those two things work together, the findings and what HRPT says in their letter.
Yeah, understood. And we can follow up with the trust for more details on that. My understanding is that 80% of the transfer proceeds need to be directed to the improvements identified in that letter. And then the 20%, there's 20% that is reserved for future capital maintenance needs. But I can follow up with the trust.
Yeah, they say that, but they also say should it be determined at a later date that it's not needed for Pier 76.
Okay.
That's the part that I was trying to understand how that related back to our findings.
Yeah, I can follow up on that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now certified on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, please.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of a special permit in Manhattan Community District 5, and our presenter is Dylan Latif Alwan.
Hello, Dylan.
Good afternoon. This is a private application by 509 Madison Avenue LLC in the Midtown neighborhood of Manhattan Community District 5. The application is for a special permit to convert the commercial office building at 509 Madison into a transient hotel. The project is located on the southeast corner of Madison Avenue and East 53rd Street within a C53 zone of the Special Midtown District and falls on the westerly half of the East Midtown Subdistrict. The requested action is a special permit pursuant to CR 74-152 to permit the conversion of the existing vacant office space to transient hotel floor area. Here's the land use map. Project area is a large corner lot with frontages on both Madison Avenue and East 53rd Street in a highly dense, almost exclusively commercial zone of the East Midtown Subdistrict. Here, highlighted in yellow, is the existing site at 509 Madison Avenue. The development is bounded by Madison Avenue to the west, East 53rd Street to the north, Park Avenue to the east, and 52nd Street to the south. Notable sites in close proximity include the Park Avenue Plaza building, located directly adjacent to 509's east boundary, the Omni Berkshire Hotel directly across Madison Avenue, and the exit to the 5th Avenue EM substation, 1 block west on East 53rd Street. Subway station's entrance is incorporated into the existing building's ground floor and will remain. The building will convert into a more modern style that retains the original structure, but with a fully updated facade upgraded with new glass cladding. The height of the building will increase as of right from its existing 237 feet to 380 feet, illustrated here in the 3 stages of development. The proposed development will maintain the existing 139,229 square feet of floor area to host approximately 96 hotel rooms and 3,345 square feet of retail floor area. This section serves as a waiver diagram. The yellow highlight indicates where hotel use will be located within the building, from the cellar level to the mechanical atop the 30th floor. Pursuant to ZR Section 74-152, the applicant will ensure that the site plan addresses the new use to ensure no conflicts are created with adjacent uses. The new use will not result in excessive vehicular or pedestrian congestion, and that the new use will not impair future use or development in the area so that the findings are met. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions now.
Great, thanks, Dylan. Okay, are there questions on this one? Okay, we're certified. Thank you.
Thank you.
The 5th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a city map amendment in Queens Community District 1. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and our presenter is Juanita Halim.
Hi, Juanita.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm here to present the 32nd Street remapping for pre-hearing review. The project site is located in the Ditmar-Steinway neighborhood within the Asteroid neighborhood in Queens Community District 1 and lies within the R5B and R6A zoning district. The Grace Evangelical Church of Long Island City is seeking a city map amendment to eliminate a portion of 32nd Street between 21st Avenue and Ditmars Boulevard. This action will secure the continued use of the outdoor play area for Asteroid Lutheran School and Grace Lutheran Church, which are located on the applicant's property, and no new development is being proposed as part of this application. This application was certified by the City Planning Commission on September 15, 2025. Here is the land use context map. The area within 600 feet of the applicant's property is primarily residential, with a mix of 3-story townhouses and 4 to 6-story apartment buildings, along with some 1-story commercial uses concentrated along the 31st Street. Here we have an aerial photo of the project area. The orange solid line is the area proposed to be demapped. It includes lot 61, 161, and a 5-foot strip of lot 25. To summarize, this action proposed by Grace Evangelical Lutheran Church of Long Island City would eliminate a portion of 32nd Street that was mapped but never built. The city map change will preserve the yard as an active play yard and gathering space for Asteroid Lutheran School and the church community, and no development is proposed as part of this request. On October 21st, 2025, Queens Community Board 1 passed a favorable recommendation of this project with 32 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstaining. And on November 20, 2025, the Queens Board President held a public hearing, and on December 8, 2025, issued a favorable recommendation of this project. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll pick this one up for a public hearing on Wednesday. Are there any questions? Okay, great, thank you. All right, on to 6.
The sixth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of an acquisition, site selection, and city map amendment in Queens Community District 7, and our presenter is Alike Adai.
Hello, Alike.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Karadnick and Commissioners. This is the pre-hearing review session presentation for the Flushing Creek TSO disinfectant project. So this is a proposal by the Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services requesting two actions: a site selection and acquisition action and a city map change action to facilitate construction of two CSO disinfectant facilities. The project will be located at two separate project areas in the Flushing neighborhood in Queens CD 7. And the first project area is located on part of the privately owned Block 5066, Lot 622, and will contain the dechlorination facility known as TI-10. The second project area is located on a New York State DOT-owned traffic triangle and is bounded by the Whitestone Expressway, College Point Boulevard, and 32nd Avenue, and would feature a chlorination and dechlorination facility, also known as TI-11. It was certified by the Commission on October 6, 2025, and referred to the Community Board, Borough President, and City Council. The proposed actions would facilitate the construction of two combined sewer overflow facilities at each of the project areas. So to facilitate the construction, DEP and DCAS seek to acquire approximately 27,500 square feet of privately owned property on Block 5066, Lot 622, and approximately 8,000 square feet of state-owned property. City map change is also required to eliminate, discontinue, and close the area of the traffic island in order for it to be subjected to zoning, as development is not allowed in map streets. The map change action would allow for the establishment of a new tax block and lot and zoning lot to facilitate the proposed development. So on November 10th, 2025, Community Board 7 held a public hearing, and on the same day voted in favor of the application with 21 in favor, 20 in opposition, and none abstaining. The recommendation was submitted on November 13th, 2025. The Borough President held a public hearing on December 11th, and we're expecting to receive the recommendation soon. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions here? We'll see this on Wednesday. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The seventh item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for MTA 125th and Lexington rezoning. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning map amendment, and staff believe this modification is within scope. Trevor Lovitz is here to present.
All right, Trevor.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. This is a scope determination of the alert modification to the MTA 125th Street and Lexington Avenue. I'm going to go to the beginning here. And Lexington Avenue rezoning made by the City Council Land Use and Zoning Committee at the stated meeting on December 4th. Certified application proposed rezoning a full city block bounded by East 125th Street, Lexington Avenue, 3rd Avenue, and East 124th Street with a C611 district, or an R11 equivalent. The rezoning area encompasses the MTO development site, which is Lot 20, and two non-applicant-owned lots, including an unimproved lot and an empty and Wi-Fi house. City Council moved to modify the C611 rezoning area to encompass only the MTA development site, Lot 20, which covers most of the western portion of the block. City Council retained the two out parcels in the C404D rezoning area. However, the proposed C611 district would be replaced with a C64 district, which is an R10 equivalent. The chart shown here compares the existing C404D bulk regulations, the certified C611 regulations, and the C64 regulations as modified by the City Council for the two non-applicant-owned lots.
the applicant's proposed zoning text amendment to map MIH and establish a new subdistrict B within the special 125th Street district coterminously with the rezoning area is unchanged. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. And we heard staff believes this is in scope. Any questions? Seeing none, I will note that Commissioner Cerullo is recused on this item, and I'll seek assent by a voice vote to send that scope determination letter to the council. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Trevor.
Great, thank you.
The 8th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for Herkimer Williams. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment to Appendix F, removing MIH Option 2 and adding MIH Option 3, and staff believe this modification is within scope.
Great. I'll seek assent by a voice vote to send that scope determination to the council. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, ayes have it. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is future votes. Staff have prepared reports for consideration on Wednesday, December 17th. First, we have Beach Channel Drive rezoning. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Alike Adai is here to present.
Okay, good afternoon again. This is the staff recommendation for our 1410 Beach Channel Drive. The Department of City Planning staff finds the applicant's proposal to amend the zoning map from an R5 zoning district to an R6A and R6A with a C24 commercial overlay, along with a text amendment to map an MIH area appropriate. Together, these actions would facilitate the development of a 7-story residential building with 118 units and 30 units of income-restricted housing on underutilized land. The establishment of the R6A and R6 C24 districts is appropriate due to its proximity to transit and the downtown local Far Rockaway Special District, which serves as to establish downtown Far Rockaway as a commercial and transportation hub. The new building would provide income-restricted units pursuant to MIH, incorporate flood-resistant construction standards, and meet the need for housing needs across a wide range of the city's diverse needs and incomes. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is 7808 Linden Boulevard rezoning. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Teal Dellis is on Zoom to present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
The Department of City Planning staff supports the applicant's proposal to amend the zoning map and zoning text, as well as modify an existing restrictive declaration. These actions would facilitate the development of 2 new residential buildings, which would have 6 and 12 stories in height respectively, with ground floor community facility uses in the Lindenwood neighborhood of Community District 10, Queens. The establishment of the R7D C24 and R6A districts would encourage development of new housing, including up to 80 permanently income-restricted units through MIH, in an area that has seen little as of right construction, and the density would be concentrated on a wide street. The new building design would also respond to flooding patterns by incorporating flood-resistant construction standards and on-site water retention, and would be supported by future infrastructure upgrades facilitated by HPD's Jewel Streets neighborhood plan.
Great. Thanks, Teal.
Reports have also been prepared on 217-14 24th Avenue rezoning, which had a follow-up memo in your package, 6312 Broadway rezoning, and 247-56 90th Avenue rezoning and Prospect Farm acquisition. Next up is ACS's 1000 to 1040 Dean Street office space. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Jordan Freyd is on Zoom to present.
Good afternoon, Chair Garodnick and Commissioners. The department recommends approval of the application for an acquisition of office space by ACS and DCAS. ACS and DCAS are seeking to acquire approximately 105,000 square feet of office space at 1000 Dean Street and 920 square feet of parking space at 1040 Dean Street in Community District 8 in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn. This acquisition would facilitate the consolidation and relocation of ACS's Brooklyn East Division, including about 520 new jobs, into a single location with refurbished office space in the Atlantic Avenue Special District in the heart of central Brooklyn. The relocation of these jobs to a mixed-use area nearby key transit infrastructure is aligned with the economic development division, the vision for economic development that was supported by Department of City Planning staff when the AMUP plan is created, when the AMUP plan was adopted, and we are pleased to recommend approval of this lease. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the report. And just a quick question. I couldn't find I'm sure it's there, but I couldn't find the follow-up from DCAS. Is it possible to send it along?
Yes, it's in your package, but we'll resend it to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thank you, Jordan.
Next, reports were prepared for Constellations, Brooklyn CB3, 5, 16, and 17. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Veronica Brown is here to present.
Hello.
Hello. This is a pre-vote department recommendation for Constellation, which is 4 separate applications by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, for the designation of Urban Development Action Area Projects, or UDAP, in Brooklyn Community Districts 3, 5, 16, and 17. The department recommends approval of all 4 applications, which will result in 8 scattered site income restricted homeownership buildings developed by Habitat for Humanity. Together, the 8 developments would produce a total of 96 income-restricted homeownership units. The sites are all vacant, city-owned land, and the proposed developments would be built under the existing zoning. In summary, the department supports these applications because they would facilitate the development of affordable homeownership units at locations in proximity to transit, as well as various services and amenities. Thank you, and I can answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Veronica. Thank you, Veronica. Okay.
Lastly, for future vote consideration on Wednesday, December 17th, is 395 Flatbush Avenue. There was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Amrita Mahesh is here to present.
Hi, Amrita.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The department is supportive of the requested actions, which would help activate an underutilized city-owned property in downtown Brooklyn and facilitate its redevelopment into a 1 million square foot, 72-story mixed-use, mixed-income development. The proposed development is a timely and effective response to the ongoing transition of New York City's business districts with an outdated office building stock into active mixed-use neighborhoods that foster environments where people can both live and work. The proposal would bring much-needed housing, job-generating uses, potential space for public facilities such as a DOHMH clinic, commercial uses, and open space amenities, not only compatible with the development in the surrounding area, but entirely aligned with the forward-looking goals and bold planning responses called for in recent policy documents that aim to ensure the city's business districts remain adaptable and competitive. The modification from a C6-4 zoning district to the proposed C6-12 district also allows a broad range of uses at a substantially higher density in one of the most prominent blocks at the intersection of Flatbush Avenue Extension and Fulton Street, which are both wide streets and destination shopping corridors of borough-wide significance with exceptional transit access comparable to that of Times Square. The department supports the proposed increase in density along the east side of Flatbush Avenue. Flatbush Avenue and the Brooklyn Cultural District have seen transformative public investments in recent years, and this area is part of a growing skyscraper district, including recent developments such as 141 Willoughby Street, 80 Flatbush, and 1 Willoughby Square, which include a total of 3 new public schools. The department believes allowing for additional modulation of the underlying densities and bulk regulations in response to specific neighborhood goals and block conditions is appropriate. The criteria established for large qualifying sites would guarantee that the highest densities are targeted for sites with multiple street frontages and would promote configurations that can best accommodate vertical mixed-use typologies at scale and encourage a greater amount of retail, commercial, and community facility uses. This application will be the first to map the newly created C6-12 districts in Brooklyn and would expand the application of MIH where the existing zoning is a C6-4 10 to 12 FAR district. The department is pleased to see that the proposed district would simultaneously enable additional housing as well as reinforce the strong non-residential character of the area. The proposed commercial uses in public plaza at the prolongation of Fulton Mall have the potential to enhance the retail environment and the east-west connection between Fulton Mall and the Brooklyn Cultural District. The department encourages the applicant to continue to work with the MTA, DOT, and the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership on addressing public realm and site connectivity needs specific to this block. The requested actions would allow the city to pursue a new 99-year ground lease with the sponsor to facilitate the proposed development, including a potential DOHMH facility, which could provide the services of a neighborhood health action center in downtown Brooklyn. And this application is entirely aligned with the planning objectives of the recent City of Yes initiatives and the department's EDS and MEDS framework, and is a place-based response to meet the needs of a rapidly evolving economy, the affordable housing crisis, and a re-envisioned public realm. The proposed development would support the neighborhood's equitable growth and continued transformation into an increasingly dynamic CBD. The department recommends approval of this application. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item.
For post-hearing follow-ups, for the items heard at the last public meeting on December 3rd, there was a follow-up memo for Seaside Park Arts Center, and David Weissglass is on Zoom for a follow-up.
All right, David.
David, you can unmute. Let's come back to David in a minute. Next, on 3301 11th Street rezoning, there was a follow-up memo in your materials, and Colin Ryan is here to present. On Zoom. Okay, David or Colin? We seem to be having some technical difficulties. We can bring them back at the next session if they don't hop in the next moment. Okay. Lastly, for post-hearing follow-ups is 1325 Avenue of the Americas text amendment and certification, and there will be a presentation at the next review session on January 5th, 2026. One last call for Colin or David.
Hi.
On Seaside.
David?
Yes. Hi. Sorry. I think I
Thank you.
briefly
Okay,
missed
go ahead. Do your
Yeah.
piece.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just wanted to briefly note that a memo was provided to you. As you're aware, it should be in your Friday package from the applicant. I also am aware that there was quite a bit of discussion in the pre-hearing as well as in the public hearing about a potential term limit. If the commission so decides to put a term limit in for this project, it wasn't in the application, so this would be one that the CPC could add on if they see fit. The previous term limit was a period of 10 years from the TCO, and that would expire on June 27th, 2026. The applicant in the public hearing said that they would be amenable to a term limit so long as it does not expire until the end of the calendar year 2036, or roughly towards the end there. So I think there's a little bit of opportunity, and I just wanted to provide the option for the CPC to discuss. And we can also follow up at the staff recommendation as well. Something like 10.5 or 11 years from the time of expiration of the existing special permit to accommodate the 10-year lease term after the expiration of this current term could make sense for the applicant, I think, and it's something that they've let us know that they're amenable to. But I just wanted to float out there the term limit discussion because I know there was talk about that at the public hearing.
Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Vice Chair Knuckles. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the memo. Thanks so much for that. The memo was very clear and detailed in terms of the climate change impact adaptation needs, et cetera. So I thank you really for that. I really appreciated that, and also the brief assessment of whether or not the goals of the original Coney Island rezoning had been met, or what was the status. Thank you for that. What the memo was silent on was on the response to the community board's conditions in terms of specifically accountability and some of the issues that they raised regarding direct engagement and oversight, and exactly how much opportunities there could be there for them to participate directly in decision making. So if you can follow up on those other questions, I mean, specifically, I know that there's a list of things, but specifically on what the board requested, which, you know, we heard from the applicant that they were considering, and then they would get back to us on that, would be highly appreciated. Again, this is the information that they're planning to incorporate into the RFP.
Yes, absolutely understood, and I can follow up with the applicant team on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Secretary,
Yep,
any more items for
Let's see if
consideration?
Colin is here. Yes, on 3301 11th Street. Colin, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a follow-up regarding 3301 11th Street rezoning. Actually, we can take this presentation down. I just have a quick note to mention that there is a memo within your package today regarding some questions that were brought up at the pre-hearing 2 weeks ago regarding sustainability and flood resiliency. And please let me know if you have any questions on that, and I can relay them back to the applicant.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Knuckles, there are no other items for business today?
All righty. The meeting is therefore adjourned, and we'll see everyone hopefully on Wednesday.
The time is 3:13.